Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya al mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are still discussing on our chapter 4 of this book, Positive Islamic Psychology, a transcendent model to achieve peace, happiness and success in the 21st century. And today I'm going to discuss a subtopic on characteristic and factors of mental illnesses. As we know, in this 21st century, the problems of mental illnesses is getting very, very severe, and in many countries it is getting out of control. And it is due to many factors that we are seeing in terms of the psychological, the genetics, the epigenetics, the social environment, the physical environment, and all aspects of our interaction with the environment today, as we see in the 21st century, which is artificial. So we have a lot of problems, for example, like psychological problems due to, for example, artificial lighting, even depression due to artificial lighting. So there are many series of factors that we have to figure a way out. So in our book, we are just giving some ideas, the gross or the rough overview of the nature, the characteristics and factors of mental illnesses. This is the writing of Professor Muhammad Mahdi Jenkins, so I'll just read one or two of few paragraphs and then I will try to give you some explanation. When I say mental illnesses is not inherited, I mean that there's no gene or combination of genes which produces most of the type of mental illnesses. It is not surprising that mental illnesses tend to occur often within some families. Mental illnesses is a set of learned characteristics. Some environments are more likely to shape the characteristics associated with mental illness than others. Among the most powerful influences in the environment are the social influences. Family are the most powerful source of social influence, particularly during the early years. Families that have a history of mental illnesses have within their makeup more of the influence, mainly social, which produce the belief and behavior of the mentally ill. Alright? This is very controversial because some geneticists, for example, or evaluation, some psychologists that uses the gene as a precursor, or for example, some of them who use, for example, other means and other tools within the scientific preview feels that this is not a fair statement. Here we are not giving just a paintbrush that, okay, bad families equal mental illnesses. All right, there are this physical environment that is brought up, the social environment, the intrasocial environment, the internal milieu of that person, because basically we are talking about his or her total realms of existence. That means his spiritual, what is the nature of his spiritual existence? What is the nature of his emotional existence, his heart, his mental existence, his physical existence, and the totality of the interaction between his or her consciousness with the family, with the society, with the community, with the world, and with the universe. So there are cascades of issues that we have to tackle to understand. So this statement is a very general statement. Naturally, we will, more and more evidence are showing that there are some relationship in terms of the genetic makeup that will cause a certain side and effect. But as I mentioned in the earlier videos of epigenetics, those precursors or weaknesses within the genome is not a death sentence. It is reflected in terms of the environment. Even the diet will change your physical and psychological environment. So within epigenetics, we know that the replication of the DNA, RNA copies that is put in a situation where, for example, they did experiment with rats that has this gene towards depression. They have those rats, you know, that they have already laboratory design. These rats are very depressive, but they made these rats to have litters, babies, and then they have these litters to be licked by another rat that is very motherly. So this litter that supposedly carry the genetic makeup of depression from the gene of that mother rat has now been brought up by a surrogate. And that surrogate is very loving, very caring, very licking, and very playful. So that manifestation of that gene, that potential gene to be depressive within that rat is not manifested. It is subdued. And they did a study also that if this litter now grow up to be an adult, which does not manifest that gene, if they have litter and their litter are brought up well, after 3 generations, the gene, due to the influence of epigenetics, the gene within this set of 3rd or 4th generation rat has switched off this effect of the depression. So you can see that within even the realm of genetics, we know that we are getting closer to understanding that there are naturally weaknesses in the gene that has certain point of trigger. That point of trigger happens only when the physical environment, the intra and intersocial environment, and the whole makeup of the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical self is punished to the extent that it is made broken, or it is made very, very tough for that person to survive in a normal manner, having freedom from mental diseases or fear or worry or depression and so on. So these are experiments that have been carried out, but what is important is for us to understand that most of all, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with the potential, with the abilities. There may be some deficiencies in which we have the tendency to have anxiety or depression or bipolar or ADHD, whatever that you can see now being manifested quite regularly. But we believe that it is the physical environment, the social environment, the intrapersonal environment, the diet, and all the things that make up this modern life in terms of the kind of things that we do. We are no more connected with nature. For example, depression, one of the highest levels of depression is being disconnected. We are living in a world of things, in a world of material things and video games and so on. So we are disconnected with the physical environment. So what they do, they have done experiments where they bring people who are depressed, bring them to nature, have them breathe in beautiful fresh air, help them see nature, help them see the singing of the birds, the fishing, the sound of the animals, the forest, and so on, and they get less depressed. Especially with this Islamic idea in which we can teach them how to do zikr, we teach them to appreciate the gifts of Allah, we teach them how to understand nature or how Allah create nature, we teach them to be understanding their role as being the servant of Allah, and we teach them their role to be the Khalifa of Allah, and so on. So those things, as we begin to infuse them with a higher level of understanding, they are connected by nature, because intrinsically we are all connected to the nature that Allah has created. That means the birds, the bees, the forests, the trees, the flowers, such joy. All right? And if we can understand that as part of our intrinsic makeup, I'm not talking about this artificial makeup of the modern world of shopping complexes, video games, cinemas, horror films, make-believe games, and so on that they are doing all the time. What we are saying is basically, if we go back to our intrinsic self, what is our intrinsic self? Allah has created us with the spirituality, with the qalb, the heart, with the akal, with the mind, with the jasad. And all of it yearns for returning to the beauty of paradise. So we have this paradisal idea within us. Within every Muslim, we have this paradisal idea of our existence is a reminiscence of the paradisal infusion of our, I would say, the spiritual DNA. It is given to us. We see the beauty at the point of our existence when Allah created us and created Adam and put him in paradise. We were creatures of paradise. We have this mithaq, this covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah tells us at that realm of our spiritual existence, in this beautiful place, Allah asks us, am I not your Lord? And we say yes. So we have this imprint of the nature of beauty, of joy, of paradise, of seeing the beautiful things within the streams, the rivers, the birds, the bees, the migration, the butterflies, that you imagine. And if we connect ourselves back towards this nature, then we have less and less mental problems. If we disconnect ourselves with that natural self, we have more and more mental problems. As we have more and more mental problems, then we say, okay, this is genetics, or this is genetics, this is genetics, and everything goes back to your genome. And then you become hopeless, helpless, because if you don't have free will, your genome controls your action, then you're not responsible. How can it be? For example, if it is your genome that caused you to commit murder, for example, they say, oh, because I have this gene that make me aggressive, then I kill somebody. Say, I'm not responsible, it's my gene. My gene, it is my genes. So this is the debate that is going on today. But within the perspective of Islam, we have this balanced view. We know we have certain genetics deficiencies, and I have explained in the previous video, between nature and nurture. But we must understand within the framework of epigenetics, because I want to give you a simple diagram for you to see this, so that maybe when I explain mental diseases within the perspective of positive Islamic psychology, you would not be saying, oh, we are just brushing it with a brush teeth, and it's not fair to those who are mentally ill, those who are in mental hospitals, and so on. Remember, we are not degrading anybody, but the nature of our existence is this way. All right, if you take, say, for example, epigenetics, you have epigenetics. This is, we have our genes, and then we have our, all right, we have our genes, and then we have our self. So if you look at this chart here, assuming that whatever that we do on this life, okay, of ourself, all right, this is our manifestation of ourself, for example. This is our self. So our self consists of the SEMP, right? I've explained to you the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical self. So this is what we have. These are the weak genes. For example, we have genes, weak genes. We are genetically weak. We may have some problems and so on. So, but it constitutes maybe 20%. Our self maybe constitute 20%, but epigenetics constitutes 60%. So the manifestation of your weak genes is dependent on yourself in terms of the environment. What are the environment? Okay. Your spiritual environment, your emotional environment, your mental environment, your physical environment, and this cascade, as I tell you, from the self, next level is family. All right, then community, then society. So this cascade. So the sum total of all this input goes back to you, and this then manifested into situation that you may have a family that may be prone to certain mental diseases or mental problems because they are linked to this gene. All right, we cannot deny that. All right, so these two play a part. But if we can use epigenetics, then what we do is we use these understandings of epigenetics. We use this whole positive lifestyle in terms of our spiritual, emotional, mental, positive. This is positive, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical self. In terms of society, in terms, for example, if I mentioned to you, we try to go to nature, we do meditation, we do reflection, we do prayers, we do all kind of things. We are changing our genes. So these weak genes get smaller and smaller and smaller. And after 3 to 10 generations, this gene become non-existent. So this is beautiful. These are all neurosciences. So we are not cast in stone. If you have a mental problem, we can overcome it by understanding how we are going to change our spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical environment within ourselves, within our family, within our community, and within our society, and use it to overcome these weaknesses. Failing that, all right, we may have to take medication and all that kind of thing, which is okay. But to make sure that this second, third, fourth gen of the same family does not have the same problems, we go back to the science of epigenetics and have this positive lifestyle, and there are many research showing this whole thing, directing to it, how we switch off the weak genes and switch on the strong genes. And inshallah, by understanding that the genes does not in any way is cast in stone, Allah has given us the free will for us to have a good life, to have a wonderful life, free from mental problems, diseases, fear, worry, depression, and other problems. So inshallah, if you understand this basic diagram, you can see how we can treat people with psychological problems in a way that is scientific, but is in a way related to the beautiful holistic way of life of Islam, always striving, knowing that we are a paradisal being, a being of joy, of beauty. We come from paradise. We are a spiritual being living in a temporary physical world. We are programmed with this paradisal beauty and joy that give us a balance, and inshallah we'll achieve the fullness of our life, being the Caliph of Allah, striving to make ourselves good, helping others to be good, and making the world good, inshallah.